My name is Ashley, and this is my testimony. I was raised in Oklahoma City, and I was in and out of DHS custody growing up. My parents were unfit to raise me and my siblings. I grew up with alcoholic and drug addict parents, and by the age of 3, I was raped and molested, and they took us away from my home. By the age of 14, we were back and forth through DHS custody and living with my mom, and DHS basically gave up on us, and they just left us alone with my mom. She did not get sober. She kept going. She eventually ended up turning to prostitution, and we ended up living on the streets. And we did not grow up in church. The only God that I knew about was when I was taken away. I was in a Baptist children's home, and they would take us to a church called Emmaus, and that's where I learned a little bit about God. And I'm grateful for that, because had I not gone through DHS custody, I would have never known of God. I would have never even heard about him. But in DHS custody in the Baptist children's home is when I had my first encounter with the demon, and I'm called to share this. I was told this morning to share it. I was told by God to share about my experience with this demon, and I realized at a young age that Satan wanted me to have no relationship with God or with Jesus. I was about the age of 12, and I was in my room at the time, and I had a girl next to me, and I remember waking up. I used to sneak my MP3 player in my bed because I would get terrified at night, and so I just put it in my ears and I would listen to Christian music. And one night I woke up to just feeling a lot of pressure, and I didn't understand, and I opened my eyes and I turned to my right side, and I could see this black figure, and I became paralyzed. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, and I just heard the voice of God tell me to pull the blankets up, but I couldn't move. And so he was like, I'm gonna count to 3 and you're gonna do it. And I was like, okay. So he counted to 3, and when he got to 3, I pulled the blankets over my head. And he counted to 3 again, and when that was done, I could take the blankets off. And when I took the blankets off, the demon was gone. Fast forward, I went back home with my mom. She stayed sober for a little bit, but she couldn't stay sober long, because we all know if we don't have God, things don't really stay. So she didn't know that. She was just repeating the cycles of her generation with her parents and her trauma. And so she didn't know. So I don't blame her. But moving forward, that would lead me into falling into addiction. I started smoking meth at the age of 15, and from 15 to about 28, I used methamphetamines, and I would stay drunk, and I would smoke a lot of weed. I just wanted to numb out the pain. I didn't want to feel anything. And if I'm being completely honest, I knew of God, but I didn't think he was for me. Not that he wasn't a good God, but that I was just doomed. I didn't deserve it. And there was one particular night I was with my daughter's dad, and he was beating me. And I went outside And I looked at the sky and I started yelling at God, telling him if he put me on this earth just to have no love, then I was just going to take myself out. And either he was going to give me a purpose or I was killing myself. A year later, I had a daughter. And on this particular day when I had my daughter is really when I heard the voice of God speak so loudly to me. And it was so beautiful. I held my daughter in my hands and she's crying. And again, I have no idea how to be a parent. And I did not get taught any life skills at all. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to clean. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a license. I didn't know how to live life at all. And so here I am, a baby, raising a baby. But I heard God, and he said, "Do you see how you love her?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I love you more than that." And I was like, "Okay, I trust you." Well, lo and behold, my daughter's father's mother owned 12 sober living houses. And that started my journey on getting sober. And I want to say that I got sober immediately, but I had some walls to beat down still. So I lost my kid. So now I'm at a standpoint in my life where I was the kid who was taken away from my mom, and now I'm the daughter that has had a kid and now has lost her kid. So I have both seen sides of the spectrum. And so I went into sober living and I started my journey. And I didn't immediately go into church. I started going to AA and I started doing the 12 steps. Unfortunately, that did not keep me sober. I went back out. I lost my daughter again. And then I came back into AA. Well, I ended up going into these classes, what they call the spiritual classes. These spiritual classes would lead me into crystals and tarot cards and just basically not believing in God and Jesus. I messed with this for a little bit. Didn't feel comfortable and it didn't feel right. It wasn't until the lady came in that started these classes, and she stood up and she said, "Anybody who believes in Jesus, this is not the class for you and you should probably leave." And so that's what I did. I didn't even know Jesus like that, and I knew that that was not my space. So I left, and I never went back again. But my daughter's grandmother, who I was staying with at the time, believes in crystals. She believes in Buddha, and believes in all these things. I didn't know how to be strong. And I didn't know enough about Jesus. And I didn't know anything about the Bible. So I guess her belief became my belief. And I just wanted something to believe in. I wanted to be redeemed. I didn't know who to turn to. And I wanted to be different so bad. And I wanted to be loved. I was abused all my life. Physically, emotionally, mentally, I was torn down. It wasn't until 2018 that I wanted to give up on believing in anything someone else told me and started to defend for myself. So I went back to AA, and I didn't really like that either because, well, in AA, to me, and what I got taught was a doorknob could be your God. I didn't like that idea. I couldn't trust that. I had trust issues, so I couldn't rely on that. And so I was like, well, I kick down doors, so that's not going to work for me. So I went to AA and I just tried. And I met this lady in AA, and she told me about a church. So I started going to this church, and I would sit in the far back. I wouldn't raise my hands, I wouldn't sing, I wouldn't do any of those things. I was highly uncomfortable, but I knew that that's where I needed to be. There's this lady there who I have made my best friend now. But what she didn't know was that she would help save my life that day. I was standing in the back, and the pastor asked everybody to close their eyes and anybody who needed to be saved to raise their hands. So I raised mine, and I hurried up and I put it back down because I did not want to be called to the altar. This lady came up behind me and grabbed me and dragged me down to the altar, and that broke a wall in me. It allowed a space to come in for me to feel a little bit vulnerable, but a little bit more comfortable with talking with these people about Christ. And then I started reading the Word. And what's crazy is the same lady who I believed in her faith, or her belief, wasn't even faith, it was belief. She tried to discourage me and tell me that Jesus wasn't real. And for the first time in my life, I was like, yeah, I'm choosing to believe in it, because I could feel it. Things just started changing before my eyes, and I could just feel it. Something ignited in me, and I just wanted to take off with it. I took off with the drugs, I took off with my thoughts, I took off with my feelings, and for the first time I just wanted to throw it all down and just chase him. And so that's what I did. I tried to pick up the Bible so many times, but the only Bible I had at the time was a King James Version. And it was so hard to learn that. But I did. I stuck with it, and I did it. And now it's the only Bible I'll read. It's the only one I actually understand and get the most out of. And so, anyway, today, the Lord has helped me overcome addiction. He has helped me overcome cancer. I had stage 3 cervical cancer, and I had died twice. I was presented with an angel when I was dying. And I just remember saying, I can't leave my kid, because I wasn't there enough to show her God. And I could not leave her like I was left. And so I was like, I'm fighting. And I seen that angel. He was so big, his wings curled from the ceiling. And I felt his breath breathe life back into me. I didn't even know I died. And when I came back to, the doctor was standing over me, and she was like, if you go under, do you want us to resuscitate you? And I was like, what? I didn't even know I died. And I just know today that God has such big plans for me. And he has plans for my kid. My kid is reading the Word with me. And she has the love of Christ in her. When I was sick from the chemo, she was there for me every step. Asking me if I needed food, asking me if I needed water. And although those are so little things, that's really big for me in my life. Because where I come from, I was born into chaos. I was born into never having a hope. All I seen was evil. All I knew was hate. The thought of love was baffling. I could see my mom try, but truth is, she listened to her feelings, and we all got choices. And her choices led her with her cost. And I didn't want my cost to be that. I wanted my cost to be where I'm home with the Lord. I wanted my cost to be my daughter's home with the Lord, that I led her to the Lord. I want to please Him. I want to hear, "You've done well, my good and faithful servant." And so today, I'm so grateful. I have a home. I have my driver's license. And I live with people that have showed me the love of Christ in such a way that I can't obtain it. It's still baffling to me day on days. And I'm speechless for words right now, even while talking. Everything that I'm saying is definitely not led by me, because if it was up to me, I would be stumbling over my words right now. I would be full-blown confused. They call it the chemo brain now, where my mind goes into squirrel mode. But He is good. He is God. Just last night, I was sitting outside, and I was about to start writing my story, so that way when I came on here, I would seem like I had everything put together. The truth is that every day I'm learning. I don't have it all put together. I don't. I want to come here and make it look like that, but I don't. Every day, my hope is just to read the Word and grow with Him, and to have a relationship with Jesus. That's it. That's literally my hope, is to be with Him and to get other people who don't think that they belong, to show them that they can. Because at the end of the day, we have choices to make. And our choices is where our journey is going to be. And today I choose Him. And today I choose to sacrifice my flesh and my desires for His desires and His ways and His truth, regardless of what someone else says and does. I don't care. I choose Him. What makes me choose Jesus is, there was one day I was walking with my ex-husband, and we're walking a 10-mile walk. And I was talking to him, and I was like, I just don't know how to connect with Jesus so much. Like, I hear Him, I see Him, but like, I don't know how to make that connection. And he goes and tells me, this is gonna be funny, but he goes and tells me how Jesus went into the synagogues, and he realized that people are selling doves and making a marketplace in God's temple. And so Jesus is upset, and he starts flipping tables, defending his Father. And I was like, man, I could totally relate with that. And from that moment on, it was like, I had such respect for Jesus to do that, to boldly do that. I mean, to imagine during that time, like, he would be beaten down. And he did it anyway, fearlessly. I hid from the world. And he did it. He didn't care. He followed the love of the Father. He did exactly what the Father told him to. And me, when I looked at myself, I had to check myself when I heard that, because it was like, I didn't even know who I was. I continued to follow everything in the world, and it led me to pain, and it continued to, even in my sobriety. And so I finally just came to this conclusion that, like, I was tired of just doing the same things over and over and over and expecting something different to happen. What I didn't realize is, like, I was looking for redemption. And so I just started talking to Jesus. Nobody told me how to talk to Jesus. And so I just started talking and started being honest. And I'm not gonna lie, there was a point in time after I heard that story that, I hate to admit this, but I'm going to. I got so discouraged, I told him I hated him because I didn't see things going my way. And I was so angry that, like, when I was screaming at him, there was not even sounds coming out. It was like deep, deep in there. And I realized when I was done, I fell to my face and I cried, telling him how sorry I was, that how much I loved him. I didn't know him, and I didn't deserve to, but I wanted to. Fast forward, I watched the movie or the show Chosen, and there's this part in The Chosen when the leprosy comes walking up to Jesus, and Jesus walks up to him, and the leprosy man says, "If you're willing, will you heal me?" And so that's what I asked Jesus, if you're willing. And he did. Yes, there was things that I had to grow in, but that's what made me fall in love with Jesus even more, was because he knew my character. He knew that I had to grow in certain things for me to gain an understanding of him, that it couldn't be just given. Some things he did just gift me with, but there was other things that I also had to work for. Not that I had to work for his love. That was already freely given to me. But when you pray for patience, he's going to give you something to learn how to be patient. Because I'm stubborn, and I won't learn it like that. I have to walk it out for me to grasp it. And so all those walking with him and all those trials that I had to go through, to whether that was beating my head over a brick wall and finally learning to submit or surrender, whatever it looked like, it was all for me to see him. That's all he's tried to do my whole entire life. I used to blame him for my life, of why I was born into something like that. But I didn't know that I was going to end up eventually being saved. And so because of that, now I get to go and share hope to somebody to where a lot of people wouldn't be able to reach. You know, I can go to somebody off the streets who's probably got half clothes on and half clothes off. And I can go up there and talk to them, and they're not going to see me as a threat. They're going to see me like, she gets it. And that's the point, is allowing God, the Father, and his Son, and the Holy Spirit to come in you and show you a whole different kind of love and light. So that way somebody else can see that. Like my family. I turned out to be one of the only believers. There's other people in my family who say they believe in God, who say they believe in Jesus, but they don't do the work of him. And they cater to their flesh, whatever makes them feel good. And I hate to say that, but I did it too. I can catch myself still doing it too if I'm not careful and staying with the Lord. So, but I can see his hand on me. When I am walking through my job, which I work at a church now, weird, at 6 a.m. in the morning when I beat everybody there, and I'm walking in the dark in the church, and I'm like, this is my life. It's so crazy. It is. It baffles me. Like, I was sold that I was going to stay high for the rest of my life. I was convinced. Like, I just, that was it. Like, I don't know how else to put it. But that's not where he wanted me to stay. A couple weeks ago, I helped my brother get out of jail. And I don't make a lot of money, but I was willing. And so I helped him. My little brother calls me, and he kind of has a little bit of a level-headed. And he goes like, Ashley, why would you do that? I was like, I'm doing the Lord's work. It's not for me to know. It's for the Lord. That's it. And so he goes like, Ashley, do you know how I see you? I said, how? He's like, I see a girl who gets pushed down, shoved, cast aside, and you stand up like a warrior for God, and you are ready to fight. And he's like, I see you keep doing that. And I just started crying because this same little brother does not believe in God. He told me that. And yet he spoke his name and recognized it within me. And I love that the Lord used me to show my family I didn't even have to do anything. I just had to walk. That was it. Because I'm not going to push my brother. I'm just going to show him the love of Christ. And because I showed him the love of Christ, and even with me dying, I'm talking about God. I'm singing praises in the hospital. Like I was there for a whole week with the tube down my throat, you know? And I'm still singing. And they're like, how are you singing? It's not the end of my story. I got things to do, you know? I'm trying to be a disciple. That's my goal. It's like, I don't need all the money. Although I came from a poor, very poor background, I don't care for money. That's not my goal. My goal is to be rich with him in my soul. That's what I long for. And that's why I love Jesus. That's why. Well, for anybody who believes that God doesn't love you, that's a dang lie. Because I said the same thing. And this is after me working at a church. I was on facilities because I thought so little of myself. I remember being in the auditorium, and I fell to my face because I was so angry that was just going to be my life. I was always going to have to be that hard worker with no degree. That, you know, it switched from being an active addiction to I'm never going to be like those other Christians. And I see all these beautiful people, you know, they're beautiful people. But I didn't know them. I don't know their life. I don't know their story. I was trying to dip off into their plate. But for me, and what I had to walk through and what I had to realize was that God is for me. We have different stories for a purpose and for a reason. And when I did doubt him, he still loved me. He is still with me today. And this was 3 years ago. And now today I'm a pastor's assistant. So it's like, those were all lies. They're lies. Every single negative thought that crosses your mind is a lie to trap you. You have to make a choice to say and choose to not believe those things. Because you believing those things are basically saying, okay, I'm going to bow down to what Satan's saying I am. And why would I let him have that? After all this time, I don't want him to have anything from me again. The Lord says he has to give back sevenfold. And I'm seeing it. I'm a walking testimony to tell you that if I grew up from the bad side of tracks, and I am standing here today with being repeatedly death knocking on my door. You know, as a kid, I had a guy hold a gun to my head, and he shot it. And the bullet literally went over, and the barrel was touching my head. There was absolutely no possible way that I should be alive. But he said that I live. So sometimes we may not understand things, but that's not up to us. If you constantly live in that, trying to figure that out, you're just going to live in misery. And that's just honesty. You can't live there. You literally just have to choose to believe. Whatever you believe will be so, and it will be present in your life. You have to be careful of where your headspace is at. He says to fix your mind on him. And there's a reason. Because if you don't, you're going to fall. But you don't have to. Even if you go through trials, you're not falling. You may stumble, but you're not going to fall. You may hit your big toe on a rock, but you're not going to fall. You know, it's like Psalms 91, when he talks about the arrows that fly by noonday. It may come near you, but it will not touch you. Like I had cancer. I got cancer that was HPV related, meaning that all the men that I dated in my addiction that cheated on me gave me things that I didn't deserve. And because of that, I got cancer. So if I wanted to, I could literally sit here and feel sorry for myself, but then I'm going to fall, and I don't want that. So I literally have to be a bigger person and just rise above that. You know, it's like when Jesus walks up to the man who couldn't walk, who was waiting to be carried by a man to the waters to be healed. Jesus literally went up to him, said, pick up your bed and rise. So that's literally speaking in your spirit context as well. Pick up your bed and rise. You do not have to stay there. If you choose to stay there, he's going to love you, and he's going to keep on encouraging you to get up. So just grab that courage and get up, because I'm here to tell you, like, even with my marriage that I was in, that broke my heart too. I'm not gonna lie, it really broke me, and I'm going through the divorce now. And I thought that I moved past all that trauma, and it came in like a flooding gate from both of our pasts, and we didn't know how to move on from those things. And fast forward the 4 years of our marriage, we created a lot more trauma for us. But in that, the Lord showed me that just because I may stumble, I'm not forgotten. I'm not forsaken. I may have made some choices that didn't align with him, but I'm not forsaken. I can get up ask for forgiveness, and do everything in me to just walk with him and just to keep going and to share his love and share his truth. I am not perfect, but I choose to believe that when Jesus says, get up and sin not, I'm going to speak that into my life, and that's what I'm going to do. You know, I've spent all my life believing the lies. I don't want to anymore. I used to choose drugs, alcohol, and weed, and people-pleasing, anger. I victimized myself. Anything to make me feel whole without actually being whole. And I would cram all those things, and I would medicate myself to make myself feel better. Today, I choose Jesus, and I choose his way of life over my own. I choose to give him my life. For anybody who is feeling hopeless or lost, discouraged or broken, Jesus is for you. And I encourage you to choose to follow him over those thoughts that you have and over those feelings that you get that feel so real. I know how real that can feel, because my addiction was my God, and it kept me crippled. It kept me where I couldn't walk. And so I just encourage you to step out and be bold, to step out and accept and receive his love for you. Because ever since I've chose Jesus, I have shalom. It's more than just the word peace. It is shalom, shalom. And he will ignite a fire in you. All you have to do is just take it. It is literally a gift. You don't have to work for it. It is a gift for you. So I just encourage you to just to take it and love him and grow with him and cherish him and receive him as your Lord. Take some time for him. He's listening. He says to knock and the door will be opened. So knock on that door.